Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video I will share with you how to make this neckline, how to pipe your neckline, and how to attach this placket you can see right here. So if that's the reason you clicked on this video, please make sure you keep on watching because I'll be sharing all the important details on this neckline. And before I get started, I just want to beg you to click on the like button. Please just click on the like button so this video gets to the right audience. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is my fabric here, and this is the fabric I used for the neckline, obviously, just like you saw in the previous video. And the first thing you want to do when you want to cut out the piping for the neckline, that's the one that goes round. You want to make sure you are cutting on a bias form. So to get your bias, all you need to do is place your tape, place 15 inches at the top and place 15 inches by the side. Connect those lines before you start marking 2.5 inches. And as you can see, I already marked mine. So I connected that point and I started marking 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches, because that is the width I need for the piping. I don't know if that's a standard measurement, but that works perfectly most times. Okay, so the reason why we are cutting on a bias form is because we want stretch. So this piping is going to be going all around the neckline, and you don't want to be cutting on your normal grain line because it does not stretch that way. Okay, so before you decide to cut out that 2.5 inch, you want to take your dress. Of course, you would have drafted the neckline and you want to put your tape all around the neckline and see how many inches you have got. And now when I measured mine, I got about 25 inches. So now I just want to check if I have up to 25 inches on this bias I just created. When I see, and I found out that I did not have extra inches, so I decided to extend the line and cut on the next grain, on the next 2.5 inches point. I hope that makes sense, because if I cut on that first one I got, I will not have any extra to work with. It's better for your fabric to be longer than for it to be shorter. So that's why I extended it and I worked with this one because it was longer than the exact measurement. So it's at this point I decided to cut out my fabric. So after cutting that out, now I'm bringing it to my ironing table because a lot of ironing is going to be carried out, and I'm just cutting out that extra now to make it straight. Okay, so this is what I've got now, and now I'm just going to go ahead now to iron what I have and divide it into two. That is just fold it into two, and I'm going to iron that part like this. So this ironing is going to help me and make my work easy, because after folding it now, I have a line in the middle of this fabric. So I'm going to fold my fabric into two because this is what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to achieve a bias. So now I'll fold one part to meet the center line. I'll fold the other part to meet the center line as well. And after folding like this, I made sure that the other part did not get to the middle line, so that when I fold, I will have something that looks like this, not equal. One part under is going to be coming out a bit by like 0.25 inches. I hope you can see what I'm showing you. So by the time I fold this, I'm just going to iron it and get my bias. After doing this now, I'm just going to fold these. By the time you've done everything I've mentioned so far, you see that your fabric is going to curve so easily because you cut it on a bias. And once I've achieved that, I'm just going to keep this aside and work on the placket. So for the placket, I have this fabric here that's measuring 16 inches by 5.5 inches. So the length is 16 inches and the width is 5.5 inches. And for this one I'm holding now, the length is 8 inches and the width is 2.5 inches. The paper stay I'm holding here is 1.5 inches width and 14 inches length. So I'll just create this curve at the under like this. Please, one thing you need to take note of is that this paper stay determines your actual placket width eventually. Okay, so I'll measure 1 inch at the top and I'll measure 1 inch at the bottom, and I'll mark that line. So also note that these markings are made on the wrong side of the fabric. So now before I place my placket and my paper stay, I'm marking about 0.75 inches before I iron the stay to the fabric like this, just as you can see me doing. And once I'm done attaching it, I'm going to fold it like this. That 0.75 inches I left, I'm going to fold it. And for that 1 inch below and above, if your placket is going to come after your piping, then you need to leave that allowance so that you will have a clean finish. But in my case, I attached my placket before doing the piping all around, so I did not need that excess, so I cut it off because my piping was going to be the one to complete the neckline. I hope you understand this. Maybe as time goes on during this tutorial, you are going to understand. So I'm going to cut out following that shape below and cut out that excess. So the next thing I'll do now is to fold this once again like this, and I'm going to iron. Remember I told you you'll be doing a lot of ironing while creating this placket. So now I'm ironing like this, and after doing that, I'm going to measure about 1.25 inches before I cut out. Yes, I'm measuring 1.25 inches and not 1.5 because I want it to not be exactly like the placket, because I want some excess. I want it to have some space on top of the fabric. I don't know if this makes sense, but I'll be raising it up now to show you. So when I put it down like this, it's not going to get exactly where the paper stay is, and I'll also have some overlap at this front part. So after doing this now, I'll bring it up again, and then I'm going to measure where my opening is going to start from. My opening is going to start from 8 inches, and at that point I'm just going to cut out. So I'm going to I'll mark what I have as a placket, and I'll divide it by 2. So I marked 1 inch. Since I had 2 inches, I marked 1 inch, and I cut out the excess from that 8 inches point. And now to make my work easier, I just brought my hemming tape and measured the length, and I'm dividing my hemming tape into 2. I'll place one at that point you can see right now, and I'm going to iron it down. I told you there's a lot of ironing in this, and this ironing will help you to keep these things in place so that when you are stitching, you are not going to stress. So this is the front part of this placket, and you can see that it's already forming. So this is the other fabric that I showed you, 2.5 inches wide and 8 inches long. I just did the same thing I did for my neck piping. I folded it the same way, and that's all about that fabric. So this is my front bodies for my Bubu dress, and I just took the front neckline and I folded it and I ironed it to give it a very nice crease line. The next thing I did was to take my placket and I took the measurement of what I had. I had about 1.5 inches, and I divided that into 2, and I marked it on that center of the front bodies like this. That part is where I marked. So I just folded it to give it a very nice crease line as well, because this line is going to make your work easier. So after ironing, this is what it looks like. You can see how sharp that line is, and that line is very obvious. So this line is going to help me too when I'm sewing. So this is that part that is going to be on the other part on one side of the placket. So I'll just measure 8 inches on this part of this dress and take note of that point. Now I'm going to slit this front pattern, the front bodies, into 2, and I'll stop at 1/2 inch before the 8 inches mark. This is intentional so that when you are sewing, you're not going to run into troubles. Okay, so now this is the sewing part of this dress. So what I'm going to do now is to open this 8 inches part of this this fabric, and I'll open it up like this and place the fabric in between it like this. So this one is not going to get to that mark because it's the other bigger plackets that will cover that crease line that you can see. All you need to do is sew in between, sew it like this, and make sure it's not getting to that line. After sewing, make sure you are back stitching to keep your stitches in place. And this is what it looks like after stitching. I actually used my pins to pin this down because it's not as easy as you can see. So now this other part of the placket is the one that will get to that line, that crease line we made. It is the one that is going to occupy that space. So now I pinned down my fabric, pinned down the plackets to the fabric, and I started stitching. Make sure as you are stitching these things, you are not stitching with the back as well. Open up your Bubu dress and stitch. Okay. Okay, when you get to that curved part, you raise up your footer and you curve your hand, like you turn it like this, and you just continue stitching. You make that curve like this and you continue stitching. It's really easy once you follow these steps and you do the right things. You make sure you are ironing, you're not going to encounter any problem. So just continue stitching until you get to that point where you want your opening to start. You don't need to rush this part, trust me, because I had to pin down this fabric so that I don't make any mistake. So at that point now where you want your opening to start, you're going to raise your footer like this and you cross it over like this and you create a stitch on that part. And once you're done with that, you should have something that looks like this. And now from that part, I'm just going to create a stitch at the part where it opens up. So just create a stitch on that part just to make the stitch continue on the fabric. So now the last thing I need to do is to attach my neck piping all around the neckline. And to do this, I want to make sure I'm folding like this before I start attaching so that I will have a neat finish. If you don't do this, your neckline is not going to look properly finished. So this is what I meant when I said if your placket is coming before your piping, you don't need that 1 inch excess at the top and at the bottom. But if you did the piping first and you want that placket to be on top, that's when you need the 1 inch so that this would be on the placket would be on top and have a neat finishing. So just take this all around. You want to sandwich the neckline in between the neck piping like this. Can you see? So open it up and put in the neckline and you continue your stitching all around. I pinned up this fabric because it's not as easy as it seems. This video is fast forwarded. Make sure you're taking your time while you do this so you can see how neat the finish is. Also, you can take an extra step to make another top stitch at the beginning area, and this is what you're going to have when you are done. So I think this is really easy, and if you've learned any new thing in this video, please make sure you like this video. Just give it a thumbs up. Reach out to me on Instagram for any tutorial of your choice, and I will be so excited to reply to you on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at ini_vogue. See you in my next one. Bye.